All right, here we are then. Any changes or modifications to be made to the agenda as it stands? Fine then, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. Declarations of pecuniary interests? None? Fine, thank you. Closed meeting? Well, we didn't enter into any closed meetings. Let's go on to announcements. Any announcements? Mrs. Choignat? The second out of school this coming Saturday at there'll be a church fair held. There's also an official opening of our fire station tomorrow. That's the fire station in Bourget. I believe festivities kick off at 4:30. There's a barbecue at 5:30 and a guided tour at 6:30. So we'll try and host the official opening on or about 5 p.m. to accommodate Mr. Zant for his daycare center. So everyone's invited, Mr. Mayor. It's a super building, of course, and it will ensure a safe future for our citizens. It's a many-tiered and investment that was spread over many years. It's going to bear fruit, I'm sure. Councillor Zant, fine. Everyone else, fine. Great then. Let's go on to question period. If anyone has any questions, please give us your name and your address. I got the name. 29 Old Highway 17. You can answer me in French, though. I'll be making my presentation in English.
A bylaw for our property that was affected by the flood. I'm just here tonight to thank you. In the long spring and long summer. Thank you to the town of Rockland and my neighbors and the council for finding us a solution to what's happened to our family property. So on behalf of myself and my father, who has the cottage, sorry, on to me, this bylaw means a lot to us because it means that I can still use property that my great-grandfather developed back in 1955. And with that, I'll just close by saying there's still families that are in the flood zone. Yes, the waters have gone. Some people still have their homes there, and so please don't forget about them. Please work with the province to find a solution. A lot of you probably don't know my history, but my family home was affected in High River, Alberta in 2013. After that, I moved home here to be close to my parents, and it happened 2 more times. So I have some experience. Reach out to places like High River that have gone through it, and I really hope that, especially with Rockland, because there are easier solutions than places like Ottawa where houses are more spread out. In Rockland, it's kind of confined. It's a similar situation at High River. Please urge the province in some way, shape, or form for families that want to move from the flood zone to help them. And so that's my message today. Please don't forget about them. This bylaw lets me move on and in the best way we can, and I'm satisfied with that. We've lost something, but I'm satisfied that there's families that still need your support and your help at higher levels that they can't get to. So thank you very much.
I'd just like to say that it's not huge. We should be thanking our success thanking you because we won't go to the expense of trying to save the economy and do a solution to it that was hard to take. And you fixed it, even though you had to demolish it. Your trailer will be there to back to get damaged for other years.
Yeah.
So for that, we do thank you. And as far as the province, we met with natural resources yesterday, mentioned the problem, asked them to find some money. I don't know if we're going to get any from the forestation cottages. I don't know if they have a solution to the hydro site. They're going to raise the hydro cottages. So quite a bit. I heard that yesterday also. But we're waiting to see if we at least we get reimbursed. You know, the city of Ottawa, no, they're not getting reimbursed. They don't figure they're getting reimbursed. Yes. And I did get an email that I saw today. They are making a roundtable in Ottawa to meet people, and that gentleman came down, so we'll be there to meet with him. Yeah.
My story's ended. I won't see my face anymore. But please don't forget about the other friends that are still with. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Next person that has a question for council? Well, just like to get back to that question of my ditch that hasn't been touched. Well, we're not going to touch it either. Its work has been very well done. Well, why don't you take a look? Work has not been properly done. You're going to call me a liar if I tell you this. I didn't hear your name. Roland Labonte, what's your address? 3713 Prudhomme Road, and I in Wendover, and I represent my daughter's interest. I often spoke about this particular ditch, and since this ditch has been repaired by the municipality, and I have a copy, why don't you find my daughter's lot here? I have no intention in taking a look at this map. Well, why don't you put on your glasses? Hold on a minute. Be respectful. Well, you say you don't want to look at this? Why are you here? We came up with arrangements. Hold on. I let you talk. Let me talk. I haven't finished speaking. Sir, I made arrangements for you to come down, and Mrs. Maniquedet spoke to you for about an hour's time. She explained to you as to how to go about making a complaint to the insurance people. You didn't do anything. We did everything to help you out, and if you persist in continuing on in this way, well, the insurance company is not responsible. Rockland is responsible. I came here and I told you and I mentioned to you that work was not properly done. You didn't contact me, neither did you contact my daughter. I asked you to phone me. You didn't phone me. You sent people over on my piece of land. They had no idea what they were doing. This gentleman stated, and I met with him not too long ago, we recorded our meeting, and when the meeting is recorded, he doesn't want to say a word. Now, he did everything, and he hired professionals, and he doesn't know what he's doing, but the professional that was hired, what did he do? He doesn't know. Well, no one is here is as good as you are, Roland. It's not that I'm good. I'm just treated like a backwards individual. I'm not the one that's saying this now. You are. Well, I'm not going to be robbed as I was in the past by the city of Rockland. You don't even have the right to step on private property, sir. We do. You're totally right, Roland. Anything else? Why, Guy, do you hire people to make damage on or to cause damage on other individual properties? We phoned you, sir. Nobody phoned me. But when you notice that there were problems in other wards, if there's a problem in Ward 1 or Ward 3 or Ward 4, you'll settle it. But I'm a taxpayer as much as anyone else. Did you see on this particular property, my daughter's property? I saw your property. We took a look at the easement. We registered everything. Well, show me where the easement is on the plan. Well, you'll have to attend the office then, because we're not going to discuss this tonight openly like this. Look, it's funny. Hey, Roland, that's it. Let me do something with you. I'll take my daughter's money, a third of her tax money that she's paying, and we'll have everything done. And when you'll have repaired the ditch properly, you tell me which taxpayer I'm taking money off of to pay for those professionals that are not properly doing their job. Yes, Roland, you're right. And I'm going to have an answer. One day I'm going to be given an answer. Thank you, Roland. Thank you for your input, Roland. Fine. I'll be here, Roland. I hope I'll have an answer I'll still be here, and we'll come back with the same answer. Yes, sir. Well, you have a whole bunch of taxpayers. Yes, sir. Thank you. Items, questions? I hope your question is going to be better than the earlier one we had. Wow. Most probably you know me, Andre Salo, 103, Pigeon, down the hill, smack dab in the water, especially during the springtime. I'm here to talk to you about Alma Street. This was subject of a discussion previously, and I received a letter stating that there was a study that had been commissioned initially with regard to Pouliot Street, Garo, and the other street that's not too far from there. And I said to myself, how come Alma Street is not on the plan that I had in mind? I was told that needs to be a study commissioned for Alma. Well, I said, well, let's have one commissioned because I spoke to Mr. Richard Campo, and he said, well, we don't have any money for this. I have to come up with money and have it approved by council and tell council where I can get the money to commission that study. I have a suggestion, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Campo, well, I'm ready to accompany him, and the first day of class, I want him to count the number of children that go by there, the number of buses that try to drive by there without hitting anyone, and how many children that are forced to climb uh, lawns to get to where they're going. There's nothing there. There's not even a speed bump there. That's the one that's at the end of Avenue du Bac, the one that crosses Notre Dame Street. Now, I don't know, Mr. Mayor. If you want to commission a study, that's fine. I can plan a study. Well, you see, as far as this goes, this is a one-way street, right? Yes. But do we have to commission a study as to that, Mr. Leonard? Well, you see, in the initial project, these streets are being rebuilt. And the way that we're going to revamp the street, well, firstly, we're going to have to determine whether it's going to be a one-way street or not. And secondly, we had work to do on Notre Dame Street, Alma Street, and there was another street whose name escapes me. That's phase 2 of the total works that need to be performed. Now, at present, we have enough money in the budget for the work that was considered as being urgent from a construction standpoint. And we'll have to come back to council with regards to additional work that needs to be performed within the confines of phase 2 of our reconstruction project. Now, we didn't obtain the monies that we needed to obtain to complete these particular projects. And this is essentially is what this gentleman is referring to. Well, this item will be included in the next budget. Well, possibly we might tackle it before then. It all depends on the amount of money we'll be receiving. Certainly, it might be done before the end of this week, but we'll have to commission a report as to the state of this particular roadway. Fine, thank you. I have something else to bring to your attention, and that's water. That's spring water. I visited Mr. Francis Drouin, and he mentioned to me, Mr. Mayor, that the federal government supports the municipalities on a financial basis, from a financial standpoint, to allow municipalities to determine what are the water levels and the floodplains inherent to their own area. Now, maybe you're not aware of this, but this is what I was told. Now, given this, I'm wondering if you were aware, Mr. Mayor, if you were aware if there was any money that had been given out, allocated, if you wish, and to this effect, and Mr. Drouin, and that's a funny fact here, his father vied for an elected position during the time in which Carillon Dam was built. He didn't win his election, but what he predicted has now come to pass. I believe that the provincial government has hired a specialist to tell us what can be done. That's about the only thing that we can rely on, Mr. Mayor. So let's wait what the specialist says as far as what can be done, and we'll start from there. But you know, Mr. Mayor, when we talk about, I'd just like to mention you this, when we're talking about floodplains, Mr. Mayor, I've calculated exactly what Carillon Dam had an impact from a water standpoint with regard to my property. When there was the highest amount of water rising, that was 21 feet higher than the channel's point of the Outaouais or the Ottawa River, at the initial point pegged at the Ottawa River. Initially, the riverbed is approximately, Mr. Mayor, 5 to 10 feet during the summertime, higher than the Carillon Dam's level. Let's not forget that Carillon Dam measures 72 feet high. That protects Montreal, and that's about it. Yes, but the fact remains that the federal government does receive money because, you see, we're making use of the waterways as well as all of the tributaries to generate electricity. We're not going revisiting the past, if you wish, but we need to have management practices that make sense given today's realities. Thank you, Mr. Sato. Yes. No. Sir, you finished. Have a seat. I forgot to give you the grade measurements that I took. Have a seat. It's 4'5" at the roadway, and it goes down to 6 feet and a quarter at the lower part. And when it comes to my land, it's 5'8". The grade is elevated by that much. And the water treatment plant also drains around that. You increase the level of water. Just take a look at this. You have all of the plans in hand. We've all paid for this. Finished now. Finished. Will you check? Oh, sure, we'll check. Yes. First thing tomorrow morning. Sure. Yes. I know what to do with my taxes. Fine. 9.1. Council members items presented by Mr. Zant. I believe that's. I believe that would be your member's item, Mr. Mayor, or is it mine? Well, somebody read it in any event. All right then. All right. Hold on there. Let me decipher my documents, my electronic documents, or put them all in order. Fine. Sorry about that. I'm a bit tired after our meetings in Toronto a few days ago. Members' resolution? Could you please read this resolution? Well, the only resolution I have is with regards to the Bonnet matter. Oh, well, hold on then. Hold on. Maybe Mr. Cousineau can enlighten us further. Oh, hold on there. Let me make heads and tail. Let me make, I see. Members' resolution. Here it is. Takes a while for me to get in gear. Now, okay. Whereas the ROMA, Rural Ontario Municipal Association, and whereas a letter sent from Roma to OGRA dated 22nd of March 2019 stipulates that the Board of Administrators is not prepared to discuss with OGRA and to combine both respective conferences, and whereas we have attended both combined conferences, it would make much more sense that the Roma and OGRA conferences return in a combined conference setting each and every February of every year to benefit all participant municipalities. Be it resolved that the City of Clarendon and Rockland ask Roma to re-establish the combined conference setting, combining the Roma and OGRA, Ontario Good Roads Association meetings. All those in favor then? Carried. Thank you. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, however, because Roma received a letter. They didn't seem all that interested. It's unfortunate because it costs quite a lot for everyone involved. Yes, because sometimes subject matters do overlap. I believe Mr. Zant and Mr. Simon looked into that, and apparently they told us that it wasn't worth their while. So I think it's worth our while to send more people over at Roma than at OGRA. In any event. All right, let's go on to consent items. Is there something that you'd like to withdraw from consent items? No? Well, Mr. Navarre, it seems that you're always the chosen one with regards to concerning the reading of consent items. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Be it deemed that all consent items be read as follows and be adopted. 10.1, adoption of the minutes of the following meetings. A regular meeting of August the 7th, 2019. Committee of the Whole, August the 17th, 2019. 10.2. Receipt of the minutes of the following meetings. Planning Committee, March the 6th, 2019. 10.3. The following recommendations from Committee of the Whole of August 7th, 2019. A. Resolution to amend the draft plan conditions for Bourgon-Laving subdivision. B. Resolution to authorize credit card payments for facility bookings and landfill operations. C. Resolution to authorize an environmental assessment for Laurier Street revitalization. And D. Resolution to accept the 2020 budget timetable and deliberation process. Item 10.4, resolution to adopt the salaries paid from June the 2nd, 2019 to July the 27th, 2019 in the gross amount of $1,779,470.44 and net amount of $1,253,960.44. Seconded by Councillor Simard. All those in favor? Carried, then thank you. Item 11, accounts paid. Councillor Bouchard? Be it resolved that the accounts paid from the period of the 10th of June to the 11th of August 2019 in the amount of $9,609,198.57 be accepted as recommended. Seconded by Councillor Cardarelli. Questions? All those in favor? Carried. Then that's fine. I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. Oh, a question here. Fine. Line 43. I'm referring to the Emergency Measures Materials, Aquatech Pump and Power, Inc. A rental of a big water pump, I assume, for the 478 Wilson Street property, an amount of $11,177.46. Now, I would like to obtain a bit more information as to this item. Well, that's a resident that was in the process of losing his house. The water had gone under the sand that had been put up there. He had 4 pumps going, and we put in this huge pump to add on to the other 4 pumps to save his house, to salvage his house. That's why we rented this pump. This is something that we'll be able to invoice on the tab that we sent to the province, and it is going to be reimbursed to us by the province. Yes. Well, you see, the problem here, Mr. Mayor, is this. We spoke to the impacted residents during the course of public meetings, and the same rule applied in 2017 when we went through the first spate of floodings. We told that the City of Claresholm-Rockland was not responsible to supply this type of equipment to help residents salvage their homes or save their secondary residences, their auxiliary resources. If I'm not mistaken, 478 Wilson is a secondary auxiliary residences. No, people lived there, sir. They lived there. Well, Mr. Mayor, I imagine that if we rented this type of pump, and I imagine that for $11,000 we rented it for more than 1 day, I assume that the municipality also took upon itself to take the responsibility to fuel up this machine every day or every second day, perform maintenance on this pump, and so on and so forth. It didn't simply leave this pump to a resident and say to him or her, have fun with it. Now, over and above the $11,100, I assume there are other expenditures that are attached to this rental. And I hope that the City of Claresholm-Rockland had a waiver signed to the resident before having it installed on his or her property, before something happened on this particular subject property. In any event, why was it that this home or this cottage and not another dwelling elsewhere that would have probably have had as much need for help from the municipality or for someone else why did this house have the use of this pump? That's why I'm questioning this decision.
concern, and when there's 5 pumps there, we couldn't keep up with what was required. So we took the decision to rent the pump as we thought that is an emergency piece of equipment to save a life. We didn't lose any lives in the first flood, and we will not lose any lives in the second flood. At the point in time the decision was taken, the cost was not anticipated to be $11,000 because no way we expect it to last 40 days. So the pump cost did rise to $11,000 because once it's there, taking it away pretty much the water never stopped at that house. So that's why the decision was made. As we would any piece of equipment required to save a life, we reviewed it.
Well, we might just open up a can of worms with this particular practice because there are many residents elsewhere that will probably come up with the same story, saying, well, look, as Mrs. Collier has stated, floods lasted over a period of 40 days, and I'm sure a lot of folks were stressed and at their wits' end. Well, this year, as compared to the previous experiment that we had in 2017, we went through a lot more sandbags. We spent a lot more money. But we were saving a bit more money because we had to obtain volunteers to help them out, you see, because we couldn't make ends meet, really. With 5 pumps running, the water was still rising. And when we put in this rented pump, the water level stabilized and decreased finally. These people were at their wits' end. This gentleman was a retired firefighter. He knew that his existing pump system was not sufficing to the demand. Well, he knows that, he brought some improvements to his pumping situation. I'm sure that if this ever arises again next year, we won't face this problem again. Well, Mr. Mayor, I think that any municipalities, I believe that the municipality made use of its discretion. As Mrs. Collier stated, she did not, or no one anticipated that it would last 40 days. The last time that we had a flooding situation before this year, it didn't last 40 days. The municipality this year did what it could to help out those that were in a crisis situation, and congratulations. Even then, 3 years ago, we spent money and we housed people at the River Rock complex. But you see, we went against the own advice we gave to people in an open meeting session. Well, if somebody would have died because we didn't come to his or her help, then we would have. It's unfortunate that everybody has his or her own opinion. Well, it's not unfortunate; it's logical. But if an individual would have lost his or her life because of this situation, we would have been blamed. And this individual phoned us and thanked us profusely after that. There were 5 pubs that were going on an ongoing basis. Instead of he had 4 small pumps that he had to fuel separately at separate times. But we did lose other homes. Yes. There are other homes that we could lose, that we did lose. But you see, the road went to where that house was, and the hole dug by the incoming water was at the front of the house. But we could get to that house. The road leading to the house had not been damaged. This is a different situation with regards to this house as other homes. Well, I think that the residents are starting to take matters in hand, and if ever there's a third flooding situation, they should have to take a look at what they're doing on Welland Street. It's nice to see the type of wall structure that's being built around that area. Yes? It's not necessarily the price of this pump that comes into play here, but they were right. We'd been there for 2 consecutive days, and these folks had to sleep in their car for 2 days. It's true that with the additional pump there, it did help out and save the house. Well, the pump was there on a temporary basis. It did help out the residents, I hope. I do hope that this alleviated the situation. I'm sure it did. Some did lose their properties, others did not. Well, you see, this situation, well, you see, the house was located at the end of that roadway that was easily accessible by town employees. Even then, organizations helped each other out. This was a rental situation, of course. This individual was a volunteer firefighter, and he was sleeping there morning and night, feeding fuel to the smaller pumps. And the hole, actually, the water had made a hole underneath the bevy of sandbags that were laid up there and was actually going towards the house. I had other questions also. Are okay with this, Mr. Lennon? Yes, fine. Mr. Simon? Line 59, $20,000 has been set aside for the new generator that is being used here, but line 77 and 78, we add another $11,000. Why would we spend $11,000 for something that's brand spanking new? Well, if you take a look at the amounts appearing on the first line of this particular item, now I confirmed with members of our team, that has something to do with the time in which it was installed. There was a bit more work to be done on one generator. Even if the project had been completed in 2018, the transfer was made only this year. Now, as far as the two other items, essentially it's the same thing. Because of the work that needed to be done, we retained the payment because work needed to be completed. Now they completed the payment, everything was okay, and we joined both payments owing that both added up to close to $11,000. And once that was done, it was paid out. It's because we have separate line items for the same project. Well, because of our accounting system, of course, those that work under the capital project expenditure line item deal with one particular project. The other one dealt with a holdback situation, and it was placed under accounts payable to be dealt with then. It was not a matter of going over and above our budgetary limits at all. This was a guarantee that we're seeking to ensure that the work was done properly before paying the contractor. Line 94, $10,000 worth of extras for grass cutting. Was that budgeted for? Was that budgeted? That's $10,000 again for lawn maintenance or grass cutting. Extras were budgeted. Yes, we asked that the soccer fields be maintained a second time around. Now, if we don't have to maintain these soccer fields a second time around, then we won't charge them back. But we're talking about supplementary lawn cutting or grass cutting. That item appears on page 46. I believe that's the proper answer with regards to this situation. I don't think we added on or any extras. So I imagine we're dealing with a Rockland-based supplier here. Yes, indeed. We required a second grass cutting. Why? Fine, all those in favor? Carried, then that's fine. 11.2, zoning bylaw. Mr. Simard. Yes, Mr. Mayor? Oh, I'm sorry, be it resolved? Oh, I'm sorry. 11.2. I apologize, Mr. Mayor. 11.2, we're into zoning amendments here. Whereas the, yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, here it is. Whereas the provincial policy statement and the official plan of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell permits limited residential development, as well as development and site alteration, including minor additions or passive non-structural uses which do not affect flood flows within flood areas, and whereas the applicant wishes to remove a dwelling damaged during the flooding with a recreational vehicle as a seasonal dwelling, that the Planning Committee recommends to Municipal Council to approve the request for zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Mrs. Monica Sige for the property located at 2919 Old Highway 17, Unit 4, Number 15 in Rockland, as recommended by the Land Planning Committee. Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Questions? All those in favor? Yes. Mr. Mayor, was Mrs. Seguin invoiced for the zoning change? Yes, she was invoiced. She was billed. Well, why? I believe that with regards to demolition contracts, or we would not charge anything. Well, it's on a case-by-case situation. Monica said that what she's doing now will save everyone money. I believe that we should reimburse her, really, for those land planning fees. All those in favor? Yes. With regards to demolition and all the rest? Yes. All those in favor? We will have to amend the resolution then. Well, the resolution be amended to read that the minor variance application fees for zoning bylaw modifications be reimbursed to Mrs. Monica Seguin if she did pay any fees with regard to this. And so, and thereby modifying the initial resolution. That's fine. Item 11.3, Mr. Lalonde. Zoning bylaw amendment again. Yes, zoning bylaw amendment, Mr. Mayor. Be resolved that council adopt a bylaw 74-78 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2016-10 in order to change the zoning category for a portion of the subject property from rural RU zone to rural exception R4 or 54 RU-54 zone, as recommended by the Infrastructure and Planning Department. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Any questions? All those in favor? Fine, carried. Item 12, bylaws. Would anyone care to remove any of the bylaws? Are we okay? Mrs. Chouanière, go ahead. Be it resolved that the following municipal bylaws be adopted. Item 12.1, bylaw 2019-61, to authorize the signature of an agreement with the public transit providers to allow the use of bus shelters and parking lots. Item 12.2, bylaw 2019-74, removal of holding symbol Bourgon-la-Vigne, part of Law 21, Concession 10, and bylaw 2019-77, removal of holding symbol, part of Lot 8, Concession 6, Part 1 on Plan 50R-1475, and Part 3 on Plan 50R-4082. Seconded by Councillor Caldarelli. All those in favor then? Carried. Now, before going on to a confirmatory bylaw, if you have any questions, go ahead, Mr. Lalonde. Mr. Boucher, can you give us an update and people tuning in concerning the official opening for the Clarence Creek Arena for the 2019-2020 season, please? Well, yes, the arena is supposed to open its doors on the 3rd. Now, for the first week, unfortunately, we didn't have all that many rentals, so we made a request to all interested associations if they had an objection to have their events be pushed back by 1 week. There was one case that we could relocate at the Clarence Rockland Arena because there was a request to that effect, but the number of hours was not sufficient to justify the opening of this complex at the prescribed date. So we'll be opening on Tuesday, 10th of September, and all associations impacted were reassured, were made aware of the delayed opening date. How about the rest now? With the canteen. Unfortunately, with regards to the canteen, we requested that someone take care of the canteen. The individuals that were taking care of the canteen last year did not want to take over the operation this year. We asked for someone to take over this year. We'll be publishing a new nobody came forward. We published a new notice to this effect this week, and we'll see if there are any service providers that can approach the city with operating the canteen in mind. If not, we'll look at alternatives. So the message is now sent out to anyone who's interested in managing the canteen at the Clarence Creek Arena to make us aware of their intent. Are they aware, or should they be aware of specific criteria, or with regards to the operating hours? Well, there's a minimum number of hours, of operable hours. However, we can negotiate this section with any interested service suppliers. Well, you were involved, sir, in installation the previous, Mr. Mayor. Maybe that would be a good thing for you, Mr. Simard. Mr. Simard, Mr. Leonard. Residents on Chemin du Lac received a letter stating that the roadway was going to be subject to grinding work to be grinded. When will that happen? Well, this should be done momentarily within the next coming weeks, I believe. It's important that this work be done, and it shall be done. Yes, Mr. Mayor? Steve Levesque, a resident, phoned me with regards to his culvert caving in. I know that we sent a representative, but we didn't give him a definite answer as to what the 3741 England Creek culvert is. Now, can you please contact him and determine what is to be done? I know council took a decision with regards to what should be done with culverts. We adopted an exception about 2 weeks ago before going off on holidays with regards to the culvert situation. Maybe ask this individual. It seems as if this culvert is blocked completely with clay or clay deposits that accumulated over the years, and also in part is blocked on the south side. Yes, I had discussions with the individuals. I told him what his options were. I believe that he communicated with Councillor Levert to determine whether or not council wished to listen to his plea. Notwithstanding that, I told him that he could certainly send a request to this effect. As far as what we can do goes, we can send him a letter saying that we're not responsible for culverts in that area. Well, the culvert bylaw specifies this quite definitely. There's no one throughout the counties of Prescott Russell that will take over this type of situation. There might be some options open to him if he can, come before council and explain his situation. Yes, 2 questions are for one. The first one being this is to set up parking signage on Mercury Street. On the park side, it's fine from a distance standpoint, but on the other side, 2 or 3 or 4 residents phoned me up to take a look at the signage is installed much further down. There is a street lamp and there's signage placed close by there. Everyone is in agreement that signage should stop us to where this lamp is. Can we take a look at the bylaw and see if we can perform an adjustment to this effect? And if so, everyone here at this table is in agreement that safety would be ensured for everyone milling about in that area. Safety would be ensured, and probably we could amend the bylaw to reflect this. Certainly, we can do so, Mr. Mayor. But if they were installed as had been stipulated in the bylaw, well, we're going to have to amend the bylaw so that it will be reflected, so that the changes be reflected. Fine. Second question, my second and my last question. I went to the landfill site quite recently. We spoke with Mr. Grimard as to how we could go about improving the in and out here. When the car is about to leave out onto the roadway where visibility is reduced, if we had an individual there to flag traffic, or could there be a way to improve visibility for a car leaving from the landfill site? Well, there are many constraints. Yes, I understand there are some things that can be done. Do you know what the status was? Well, you see, what happens is that all cars go in and they're parked right up to the road, and maybe put in a bar measuring so many feet, a fence, if you wish, that could swivel in and out, that could let cars in or out. You know, if there are some trees hanging about around the landfill site before being put into the landfill situation. It's not a matter of traffic per se. Well, we'll review the management principles inherent to the site itself and see if there's anything that can be done to increase the visibility in that particular area. Well, fine. Councillor Chouanière? Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, with regards to street lights in front of on the grocery store on Laval Street, and that roadway leading to the post office. It's very dark during the evening, so I'm wondering if it could be possible to uh, purchase or to add onto the existing lighting there. Fine. Also, I'd ask citizens, you know, there are some old culverts there that are built out of metal. Why is the city of Clareton Rockland not able to replace those culverts? Well, the bylaw's already been passed. We had county roads and our own roads, and county could not meet the demands. And sometimes county says, well, it's on a county road, sometimes on a municipal road. That's why we adopted bylaws that we were not going to replace culverts anymore, especially around private properties. All responsible municipalities within the United Counties of Prescott Russell function along that particular principle, following this particular principle. Well, it, it seems to me that it would require less maintenance if we could take care of it ourselves. All right. I just like to mention that the community day that was celebrated at the Bourget Park was a super great success. There were a whole bunch of people that took part in activities, a lot of families, 3 or 4 daycare centers that attended with busfuls of children those activities that were offered to them there. So each and every year it grows even bigger, and it's going to become hopefully an annual event, if, given the nice weather, of course. And everything worked quite well. Things went quite well, and we had a lot of support from town employees concerning general administration of that day's proceedings. Good news. That's it, Mrs. Chouanian. Mr. Guillemard? Now, on the 19th of August 2019, will the posts on Laurier Street be repainted? I just want to confirm that this is going to be done in 2019. They have already started painting those posts there on Laurier Street, as was previously discussed and as was previously identified, of course, as being a need. Yes, I know also that, Mr. Roy, that we do have. Well, I have a few comments concerning the speed at which vehicles travel at on Caron Street. It's always been a problem. That's in Mr. Bouchard and my ward. Now, there is a unit that can supply us some statistics. People say that, allege that some vehicles go by at a certain speed. Could there be a speed counter along Caron Street where it slopes down, where we could post up statistics whereby people traveling by there would have statistics posted as to how fast cars were going? I know that there was a traffic control mechanism that was installed on Corbeil, on Dr. Corbeil Street. We might take the one on Outaouais Road because it doesn't do all that much, really. It doesn't do all that much good close to the golf course, and put it there. You see, this is just a suggestion, really, Mr. Mayor. Well, the one on the Outaouais side there doesn't do much of anything. We've received complaints, I believe, Mr. Mayor, and I think that given this, we've received statistics, but statistics did not bear out really the reality of the situation, and citizens around that area told us that cars were traveling much faster than statistics revealed in the past. And it would help us to determine whether or not there is a problem or not. It would allow us also to avoid spending money where it's not needed, instead of thinking, well, we need to spend money to alleviate speed-related problems where there are none. But you know the hill I'm referring to, of course. Yes, yes, I do. And certainly, yes, we can look into this and yeah, and just follow up with regards to this. You can take 2 weeks worth of statistics, take a look at this, and send it off to residents and saying, well, by saying, yes, there's a problem, or no, there's no problem. Is it possible to do so? Yes, it is possible. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Zant? Well, concerning the speed at which vehicles travel at, we'd spoken of this initially, I believe in the month of April, on Edwards North. Now, because we were in the midst of flooding difficulties, of course, there were, we were there during that time. Well, I went to, I spoke to the citizens there, and I told them that control mechanism will be put up there. Yes, we will do so. And if there are many areas in which a need for such mechanisms be put up, or such traffic control mechanisms be set up at certain areas, well, we'll do so. You see, once you see your speed, the speed at which you're traveling at, and there's nothing you can do at a certain point in time, people can take a look at this location, even though those walking along sidewalks looking at cars' speed, and they can take a look at what their speed is at, what they're traveling at. And that's probably something that we could add on to the next budget, really. There's a, we're talking about an area in which there is a park there where children play. Another question, Mr. Leonard. I'd also spoken to Mr. Campo concerning the possibility of repainting street lines. Now, Caron on a southerly direction towards Laurier needs paint. Now, and there's a sensor there, the sensor. When the road was redone, was closer, and the Laurier street line is too far away. The individual stops at the line, but too far apart from the red light. So I'd ask that the line be repainted closer to the street lights. And there's a lot of space before we get to the crossroads afforded to the driver that stopped there. I know that Mr. Campo did ask that this be done, and it was not done. So I'm wondering if you'll be acting on this. I know there were other situations, again, speaking through the mayor's chair, where stop lines should be pushed back a tad bit to allow cars to properly make a turn either left or right. That's food for thought the next time in which you'll be painting those lines in that area. Thank you. That's all I had to state, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Caldarelli, once again, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to heap on to previous comments made directed to you. I believe that there's demand there. We could add an item to the budget to alleviate the situation, and certainly we could have data on hand to share with our residents. So we just want to make sure that common perception is conducive to what prevails, especially if it reflects reality. If we can correlate the amount of data that we have on hand, sometimes 45 on a street where the speed limit is set at 30, and that individual travels at 80, there's a problem there. Well, I might send an email, let's say, to all 10 councillors through the mayor's chair, detailing all the locations, and come up with a spreadsheet and data on this spreadsheet type of data culling. document, because people don't know exactly what speed limits do prevail at certain areas. Yes, I agree. I agree. Let's just say that the one that doesn't post the speed at which a car is traveling is not governed by our department. So, Mr. Leonard, all of this to say, Mr. Mayor, that we've had a lot of discussion with regards to this particular situation. But in the interim, what we can do, it's a bit less sophisticated, but given the studies that were commissioned, the traffic flow studies that were commissioned, we can make use of the data there to gauge the speed limit, the speed at which cars travel at. That might not answer all queries, Ray, all queries tonight. It's not as sophisticated, but it's a workable situation. We can give it to Mr. Dwyer. He doesn't have anything to do, so maybe he'd be interested in implementing this particular type of solution. Sure, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So, in any event, I do receive calls with regards to Bouvier Street. There aren't all that many homes on the Bouvier Street, but still the speed limit is pegged at 30 there, and people don't understand. You know, they say, well, we're allowed to drive at 80 kilometers an hour, and on Bouvier Street, it's replete with open fields. Well, we receive complaints to the effect that people are traveling too fast here. I understand where there are some residences where people should slow down, but there's a fair stretch of roadway in which there are no residences on Bouvier Street. So, well, we could, where homes are concentrated, we could set up a speed limit from Russell to Lavigne Road, for example. It's very important because, there's sinewy stretch of roadway. Let's say it's 50 kilometers an hour, but from Lavigne to the Gulf center, could be 80. That's what people tell me. People tell me that really it should revert. It should revert to 80. We're in agreement that within the municipality's limit, speed at to set a speed limit at 50 kilometers an hour, it makes sense. But when you set a 50 kilometer an hour speed limit in those areas where it makes no sense to impose a 50 kilometer an hour speed limit, well, we've received a lot of complaints strewn over the course of many years, and it compelled us to modify the bylaw. We shouldn't generalize the situation like this, but you see, Councillor Chouanière, we've adopted a bylaw that impacts the whole of the municipality, and we have to apply it in the same way in which it was intended to be applied. So, usually, if we come up with exceptions, it might give rise to some difficulties. It might give rise to precedents also. And the procedure would be to call upon citizens to come up with petitions. But you see, most of the similar type roadways that resemble this particular roadway don't have that dilemma. Well, Caron Street from baseline is not pegged at 50, it's pegged at 80 for a fair stretch of for fair length until that part. I'd like you to do the same thing for Bouvier as you did for Caron. If you did something like this for Caron, I don't know why would do so for Bouvier. Well, this rule applied for gravel roadways, but necessarily there wasn't enough traffic volume that would call for an 80 kilometer an hour speed limit modification. But why don't you bring something? Well, then I have to ask questions beforehand. That's the purpose behind my question. Councillor Levert? Yes? Let me tell you, Mr. Mayor, it's a way that wouldn't be all that costly to implement traffic control. As long as you don't have 150 of those traffic control mechanisms in the shed somewhere. But let's say in Hammond, for example, well, residents made a request, and if they make a request, then we'll certainly install a mechanism there. Well, I've made a request as to that, yes, but especially when school starts again, I know that I parked at the corner of Butler, and I parked there, and people drive into the village at 80, traveling at 80 or 90 kilometers an hour. Now on the other side, oh my God, you too? You also? No. But on the other side of Joigny, the same rule, the same situation prevails. Two things also, just to reassure individuals, the dead fish in the river, I talked to Dr. Paul, who is in charge of the health unit, and he told me that no chemical ingredients contributed to these, the death of these fish. It's it's a question of pollutants that were introduced. Mr. Cousineau is aware of this. Yes, hydroelectric practices. Phil operates centrals in North America and South America, and their practices did not change. But it seems that quite recently, certain hydroelectrical practices would have contributed to the increase of oxygen content, or the decrease of oxygen content, or the increase of oxygen content, should I say, which is injected directly into the lungs of different fish species. So Dr. Paul had mentioned to me that no chemical ingredients played a part in any of the deaths of fish there. Now, last Tuesday we attended the AMO and we met with the delegations, and we were told that anybody that is connected to our line will receive revenues to compensate for the amount that we paid. We asked that this be spread over a 10-year period. They thought it made sense because quite often projects will tap into ours, and sometimes we short on time with regards to planning uh, implementation periods. Enbridge allows us 20 years. They're given 20 years. Enbridge, you'd ask me to look into that, and they're allowed 20 years to settle in. We heard Mr. Ford's speech, and you heard that daycare centers are to be cut by some 20%. And also the health budget will be cut. It remains to be seen as to how much cuts will impact us. There'll be infrastructure modifications, and we asked why asset management funding request had not been accepted, and we were told to reapply with regards especially to Laurier Street. And at the same time, we were given a pamphlet containing information with regards to Highway 17, asking that this be widened. What else is new? We've been asking this for many, many years, and at the same time, the county's residents attended a presentation given by Mrs. Mulroney. We waited until Monday morning to determine whether we were going to meet with Mrs. Mulroney or not. We could not. Mr. Kirby met along with Mr. McDonald, who's president and mayor of Alexandria, and I handed him the documents that we had with regard to Highway 17. He handed them to the Ministry of Transportation, Mrs. Mulroney, as well as the Ministry of Infrastructure, Mr. McDonald, or Ronna McDonald, something like that. McNaughton is Environment. Well, the Infrastructure Ministry both received our pamphlet along with the information. So Enbridge, we met with the president. He's a nice individual. He's willing to help us. As he helped us with the natural gas problem we had, pitting us against ATG. Minister of Environment, we met with these folks at 25 yesterday evening to talk about clear cutting, to help us to come up with a document or a bylaw so that we would be in line with any bylaws we'd be implementing to prevent clear cutting. And at the same time, also we spoke about flooding in our area. We were told that there wasn't all that much money anywhere, not to expect miracles, but they'd be looking into this situation. And with regards to school buses now, they have a type of radar apparatus affixed to the school bus system. Now, if the stop arm is out, this particular mechanism will take down the license number as well, will photograph the license number, and the driver will be assessed a fine. We received a presentation as to that. It was quite an interesting one. Yes. Fine. So things went quite well. Cannabis, well, I don't think that's going to impact us all that much. There are going to be three cannabis selling points or selling stations or sales stations in Ottawa, and that's about it. Or sales points. Fine. Now, with regards to Laurier Street, let's try to specify the fact that we should put a lot of emphasis to safety, on safety. Mrs. Collier spoke to someone, and we were told that our application was well drafted, but it seems as if we won't get any money. Well, it seems as if health and safety will be one of the criteria to be considered by the authorities. So if we can try to add health and safety elements, well, the problem was that the budget for shortfall was something like $27 million spread out throughout the whole of the province. Fine. Confirmatory bylaw, please. Bylaw 2019-83 be deemed as a confirmatory bylaw for the regular meeting of Town Council held on 21st of August 2019, seconded by Councillor Cablanetti. Adjournment called at 8:22 p.m. Thank you. Thank you, folks. And we'll see you again next month. Thank you again, and have a good evening. Yes, we can turn off our mics now. That's fine. Fine?